Hey guys, you're watching B-Tech, I'm Basil, and this is the Lenovo P2, available here in the UK for as little as £199, pay as you go on 3. It's an absolute steal when you consider the fact that it's got the biggest battery any mainstream smartphone does today. Pair that with a 5.5-inch AMOLED screen and this is screaming value for money. But how does it fare after a couple of weeks of usage? From the front, the Lenovo P2 is basically a Samsung Galaxy S2 with its physical home button. It looks very similar, and from the back, it's kind of smartphone by numbers, but what you get is a metal phone that feels expensive, premium, and is a lot more slender than I thought it would be, given the fact it has that 5,100 milliamp battery under the hood. Still relatively beefy compared to a lot of other devices, but between the metal frame, the chamfered edges, and the decent in-hand feel, as well as that really affordable price tag, I'm impressed by what Lenovo has managed to do here. The same can be said of that screen. It's an AMOLED display, really nice and saturated, deep colors as well, 5.5 inches, full HD resolution. You can also change out your color mode to get everything a little bit more subdued if you don't like that AMOLED punch and pop, but me personally, I think it showcases the UI off perfectly. Speaking of the UI, and it's a tale of two halves, you've got Vibe UI, which I've got running on here. If I, for example, long press one of the home screens, jump into preferences, I can swap out between Vibe UI or Android out of the box without having to launch a third-party launcher. You can still gain access to things like your applications tray, which you might well like. Vibe UI has some neat advantages like universal search, but both user interfaces have this two-tier notification tray, as you can see. And of course, if you really want to, you can simply jump into the Google Play Store and install a third-party launcher or download an APK like I've done, and I've got Pixel Launcher, so this looks and feels very similar to a Google Pixel phone. Stability was decent. It wasn't quite as on point in Vibe UI. I did have a few slowdowns, stutters, but as soon as I got Pixel Launcher on here, I was happy as with the Lenovo P2. When it comes to multimedia, the screen is perfect for enjoying content on. You'll want to plug in some headphones or an external Bluetooth speaker like this one if you really want to get the most out of it, because that mono bottom firing speaker is not all that. But for the price, that 5.5 inches of AMOLED splendor and the 32 gig internal memory is a very good start. It's still going to be nice and loud, but you can definitely cover up those speakers pretty easily if you are gaming on this thing. Speaking of gaming, the Snapdragon 625 paired with a 4 gig of RAM should play pretty much everything that you throw at it. Now, as far as benchmarks goes, it got 53,546 on Antutu and just shy of 3,000 on Geekbench multi-core. So it means that while it's not way up there, as you can see, it still handles 3D games even if you do end up dropping a frame here and there. The 13 megapixel rear camera is paired with a range of shooting modes, from the standard automatic mode, which is fair, nothing mind-blowing. You have to keep a really steady hand. There is no image stabilization on here, but you can also jump into manual mode for anyone who wants to tinker. That Pro mode though does have some downsides, namely the longest shutter open is 2/3 of a second, so you can't even get a full second shutter in there. Still, for basic picture taking, it will absolutely do the job, as will the front-facing 5 megapixel camera. When you're talking about video, it can shoot up to 4K, which isn't too shabby at all. There's also image stabilization on board, which crops into the picture, so it is all digital but still does a fair job. Again, just like with photo though, it does tend to crumble a bit in low light. The connection list on this thing is pretty standard for this price point, except for the fact you've got a fingerprint scanner on here. It's not only a fingerprint scanner, it actually does some smart stuff. So you can get rid of the navigation buttons, you can long press to multitask, and you can press it once to go back, and of course it will unlock your phone from off with a tap of your thumb or finger. As for other connections, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, GPS, and of course that NFC contact point around the back. You've got a memory card slot to the left, expandable by up to 128 gigabytes, paired with that 32 gig onboard memory, 200 quid. I'm really not going to complain, and neither am I going to complain about that huge battery. I never even found myself going into ultimate power saving mode, because this would just last and last. Easily 2 days. is using this thing relatively heavily, mobile hotspotting and all that jazz. And so if you do want to flick this mode on, then you will get 3, maybe even 4 days out of it, if longevity is the name of the game. Therefore, the Lenovo P2 easily scores an 8 out of 10, only really hampered by that camera performance, just a little bit subpar. Generally though, if you do want the biggest battery on the block, there isn't really anyone else who's going to stack up to this bad boy. Hopefully you like this video. If you've got any questions about the Lenovo P2, please follow them in the comments section below. Like it, click that thumbs up button, like the channel, subscribe. That's how you're going to stay on top of everything that we do here at BTech. Thanks for watching.